I've titled my book Writing to Wake the Soul, in part, I suppose, because I have found myself to be asleep at the switch quite often. And frankly, I don't think I'm alone in that. I think there are many things in our world that cause us to shut down, to want to go to sleep, and especially to cause our soul to go to sleep. Our soul is that place where we know our deepest longing, and we live in a very consumerist society that tells us that longing can be fed by purchases and by one more new thing, when in fact our soul's longing is for something deeper than that. And so one of the ways we fall asleep is by adding new things in our lives, but that really doesn't help. Another way that we fall asleep is by simply making ourselves so busy that we don't pay attention to what matters. And so we find ourselves putting our soul to sleep with busyness. And then there are all those ways in which we put our soul to sleep with any of the things we can be addicted to. This particular book is about waking up the soul instead of putting it to sleep, as a way of paying attention to our own lives and to the world around us, and to using that attention as a way to let the soul speak, not only in our personal lives, but in the way we engage with one another. Writing is a great way to wake the soul, because what it does is it puts our soul's yearnings into words, and words can then be shared with one another. When we use writing as a way to wake the soul, first of all, we're giving expression to our soul's voice, and by putting it on the page, we have the opportunity to come back to it later. When I put something down on the page, often in the moment, I don't realize half of the meaning that is held there. When I go back to it on another day, I find whole new levels of meaning that I hadn't realized were there the moment I put the words on the page. Similarly, when we put something on the page, we have the opportunity to share it with others. And that just increases the riches of reflection that can be used in this spiritual practice. The reason this particular practice of writing is focused on words from both our religious and our secular vocabulary is because I believe at this moment in history there are a lot of really good words that we have stopped using, either out of confusion or out of aversion or out of reaction to old meanings that may not hold sway in this particular day, but that merit our attention in looking at where the word once was and what it can mean today. So faith, for instance, is a word that has been pulled in all kinds of directions, not only in our religious lives, but in our political lives. We know that that's a word that has been used almost in a game of tug and war sometimes. And yet it's a good, rich word that is really about what we trust most deeply. And so if we look at the word and its history and the many stories that carry it forward in our own religious traditions and in those of others, we can begin to understand that it's a very good word, that we will be at a loss if we get rid of it too quickly. And so our willingness to work with that word and understand, first of all, what each of us means when we use it, and then to understand that others may mean something entirely different when they use it. And yet they're linked somewhere, because language is about language. And so when we use this spiritual practice of writing to look at particular words, we're reclaiming our religious heritage. And we're finding ways to connect our own religious language to the languages of others. And that's really about being able to communicate. It's at the heart of both religion and language, to find the connections between us.